The roar of the crowd inside the interstellar Coliseum was deafening. Thousands of alien spectators packed the tiered seats, their various appendages gripping the air in excitement as they chanted in unison. The arena itself was a blood-soaked relic of galactic brutality, a massive circular pit encased in shimmering energy fields. Beasts of legend and warriors from across the galaxy had met their ends here, crushed beneath the weight of the crowd's insatiable appetite for violence. And tonight, the star attraction was human. Cameron Cam Steele, a scrappy ex-soldier from Earth, stood at the center of the arena. His breathing was measured, his posture coiled like a spring. A simple combat jumpsuit clung to his wiry frame, but his weapon, the centerpiece of the spectacle, gleamed menacingly in his hands. It was a relic of Earth's old wars, a Gatling gun capable of unleashing destruction at a ferocious 3,000 rounds per minute. Above him, floating in the air, was the holographic announcer, a gelatinous alien with dozens of shifting eyes. Its voice boomed in several languages, the galactic standard echoing for Cam to hear. "Behold, puny Earthling, you dare challenge the champions of the Interstellar League? Do you truly believe you can survive?" The crowd erupted into laughter. Metallic whistles, guttural roars, and electric buzzes filled the air as aliens mocked the lone human. Cam didn't flinch. He adjusted his grip on the weapon, his jaw tightening. The first gate opened with a thunderous clang. From the shadowy maw emerged a creature that towered 3 times Cam's height, a hulking reptilian predator covered in iridescent scales. Its claws clinked against the ground as it advanced, saliva dripping from jagged teeth. A beast bred for killing, enhanced with cybernetic implants. The laughter intensified. Cam inhaled deeply, his eyes narrowing. "Time to make them shut up," he muttered under his breath. The beast charged with a guttural roar, shaking the arena floor. Cam held his ground, waiting until the last possible moment. Then, the Gatling gun roared to life. The sound was deafening. The spinning barrels unleashed a storm of lead, tearing through the beast's armor and flesh alike. Blood and sparks flew in every direction, the creature's momentum carrying its mutilated body forward before collapsing mere feet from Cam. The crowd fell silent for the briefest of moments, stunned by the brutality of the weapon's power. But their silence quickly turned into a frenzied roar, more intense than before. The spectacle had just begun. 2 more gates opened simultaneously. A pair of warriors stepped out, one an insectoid assassin with razor-sharp appendages, the other a hulking, amphibian brute wielding an energy mace. Cam didn't hesitate. He spun, unleashing another torrent of bullets toward the insectoid. The creature darted with unnatural speed, but Cam's years of combat training kicked in. He anticipated its movements, adjusting his aim and riddling its carapace with bullets until it collapsed into a twitching heap. The brute closed the distance, its mace humming with deadly energy. Cam rolled out of the way as the weapon slammed into the ground, sending a shockwave that rattled his teeth. He pivoted, spraying bullets into the creature's unarmored back. It roared in pain, swinging wildly, but Cam kept moving, exploiting every opening until the brute finally crumpled. The crowd was losing its mind. Above the arena, the announcer's hologram flickered with disbelief. "Impossible! No human should possess such savagery." Cam allowed himself a grim smile. "You haven't seen savage yet," he muttered. But his brief reprieve was cut short as all 5 remaining gates creaked open. This time, the laughter didn't return. Instead, an eerie hush fell over the arena as the new challengers emerged. They were an eclectic mix, an armored mech piloted by a snake-like alien, a telepathic avian sorcerer, and a pair of twin beasts linked by a grotesque biological tether. At the back of the group stood the final foe, a towering humanoid clad in shimmering black armor, its face obscured by a featureless mask. Cam's pulse quickened. This was no longer a fight for entertainment. This was execution. The mech fired first, unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts. Cam sprinted, ducking behind the corpse of the brute for cover. The Gatling gun spat bullets, forcing the mech to recalibrate its aim. Cam charged, weaving between plasma bursts, and unleashed a stream of fire into the mecha's cockpit. The snake-like pilot screeched as the bullets shattered the protective glass, silencing its controls. But the victory was short-lived. The avian sorcerer's screech filled the air, and Cam felt an invisible force gripping his limbs. He struggled, the Gatling gun slipping from his fingers as he was lifted into the air. The sorcerer's telepathic voice invaded his mind, dripping with malice. "Your kind is weak, human. Your resistance is futile." Cam clenched his jaw, focusing through the pain. His eyes darted to the remains of the mech, where its severed arm still clutched a plasma grenade. Summoning every ounce of willpower, he reached out, yanked the grenade free, and hurled it at the sorcerer. The explosion was blinding, the telepathic grip shattering as the sorcerer screeched in agony. Cam hit the ground hard, rolling to his feet and grabbing the Gatling gun just in time to face the twin beasts. They came at him in unison, their tether granting them unnatural coordination. Cam's gun roared, but their thick hides absorbed most of the bullets. They flanked him, one lunging low while the other attacked high. Cam dove backward, firing at the tether that bound them. The bullets struck true, severing the grotesque connection. The beasts howled in confusion, their movements disoriented. Cam wasted no time, focusing his fire on the weaker of the two until it collapsed. The other roared in rage, charging blindly, and Cam sidestepped, delivering a final burst to its exposed flank. Breathing heavily, Cam turned to face his final opponent. The armored humanoid had not moved during the chaos, observing with an unsettling calm. Now, it stepped forward, drawing a blade that shimmered with dark energy. The crowd's roar reached a fever pitch. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the ultimate test. Cam squared his shoulders, gripping the Gatling gun tightly. He knew it wouldn't be enough. The blade was too fast, too precise. But he had one last trick up his sleeve. As the humanoid charged, Cam fired a controlled burst, aiming not at the enemy but at the arena's energy field generators. Sparks flew as the bullet struck, causing the shimmering barrier to flicker. The humanoid hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough. Cam grabbed a plasma grenade from the mecha's remains and hurled it at the damaged field. The explosion caused the barrier to collapse, and Cam dove through the opening, narrowly avoiding the humanoid's blade. The crowd erupted into chaos as Cam sprinted toward the exit tunnels. He had survived the impossible, but the fight was far from over. Behind him, the announcer's voice boomed with fury. "Stop him! The human must not escape." Cam didn't look back. His mission wasn't just survival, it was revolution. And he wasn't about to let the galaxy down. The tunnel was a labyrinth of flickering lights and corroded metal, the sound of Cam's boots echoing off the narrow walls. He clutched the Gatling gun tightly, its barrels still warm from the carnage in the arena. Behind him, the chaos of the Colosseum raged on. Sirens wailed, and the announcer's voice boomed over the intercom, commanding every available guard and drone to intercept the fleeing human. Cam darted down another corridor, his breath ragged. His mind was racing as fast as his legs. He hadn't planned to make it this far. His entire strategy had been focused on surviving the arena. Now, he was improvising, and the stakes were higher than ever. A high-pitched whine snapped him out of his thoughts. He spun just in time to see a pair of hunter drones round the corner, their sleek frames bristling with weaponry. Without hesitation, he raised the Gatling gun and squeezed the trigger. The drones were fast, darting back and forth as they fired plasma bolts. Cam dropped to one knee, using the tight confines of the corridor to limit their movement. The gun roared, filling the space with a deafening cacophony. Bullets tore into the lead drone, shredding its armor and sending it crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. The second drone veered upward, clinging to the ceiling like a spider. Cam tracked it, but it fired first. A searing plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, sending pain shooting down his arm. He grit his teeth, adjusted his aim, and unleashed another burst. The drone exploded in a fiery blast, its remains raining down around him. Cam didn't have time to dwell on the pain. He tore a strip from his jumpsuit, tying it around the burn on his shoulder as he pressed forward. Every second counted. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, dimly lit and filled with stacks of crates bearing alien insignias. It looked like a supply depot, and it was crawling with guards. Cam cursed under his breath and ducked behind a crate as the guards spotted him, their guttural shouts echoing through the room. They opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up the space in a deadly light show. He peeked around the crate, assessing his options. There were at least 10 of them, heavily armed and well coordinated. Charging in guns blazing would be suicide. He needed to even the odds. His eyes landed on a cluster of fuel cells stacked against the far wall. A grim smile tugged at his lips. That'll do. He yanked a grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, and lobbed it toward the fuel cells. The guards shouted in alarm, but it was too late. The explosion rocked the chamber, a fiery inferno consuming everything in its radius. The shockwave knocked Cam off his feet, but as the smoke cleared, he saw the results. Several guards were down, and the survivors were scattered and disoriented. Cam didn't hesitate. He surged forward, the Gatling gun spitting bullets. The remaining guards fell one by one, their energy shields no match for the relentless firepower. As the last guard dropped, Cam paused to catch his breath. His ears were ringing, and his muscles ached, but he couldn't afford to stop. He rifled through the crates, searching for anything useful. He found a small device resembling a communicator and stuffed it into his pocket. If he could access the ship's systems, he might be able to find a way out of this death trap. The sound of heavy footsteps made him freeze. He turned to see a massive figure stepping into the chamber, a combat exosuit, its pilot encased in layers of reinforced armor. The suit's arms bristled with weapons, and its glowing visor locked onto Cam. Target acquired, the pilot's voice growled, cold and mechanical. Cam barely had time to react as the exosuit fired a barrage of rockets. He dove behind a crate, the explosion sending debris flying. The Gatling gun would be useless against that armor, and he was running out of tricks. His eyes darted to the smoldering remains of the fuel cells. Among the wreckage was a plasma cutter, its blade flickering faintly. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Cam grabbed the plasma cutter and sprinted toward the exosuit, zigzagging to avoid the hail of bullets and rockets. The pilot sneered, raising a massive arm to swat him away, but Cam was faster. He slid beneath the exosuit, slashing at its exposed joints. Sparks flew as the plasma cutter bit into the metal, severing hydraulic lines. The exosuit staggered, its movements jerky and uncoordinated. Cam rolled to his feet, climbing onto its back as it thrashed. The pilot cursed, trying to shake him off, but Cam drove the plasma cutter into the suit's power core. The blade sank deep, and with a blinding flash, the exosuit powered down, collapsing in a heap. Cam rolled clear, breathing hard. His victory was short-lived, though, as the intercom crackled to life. Attention, all units, the human has reached the lower levels. Deploy the Clerax unit immediately. Cam's blood ran cold. The Clerax was a name whispered in terror among those who had faced the Interstellar League. It was a biomechanical nightmare, an unstoppable killing machine designed for one purpose, to eliminate any threat. He didn't wait to find out what it looked like. Clutching the plasma cutter and his Gatling gun, he sprinted toward the exit, his heart pounding. The next corridor led to a hangar bay, its massive doors opening to the void of space. Cam's eyes lit up as he spotted a small starfighter docked near the edge. It was sleek and compact, a perfect getaway vehicle. But between him and freedom stood the Clerax. The creature emerged from the shadows, its form an unholy fusion of flesh and metal. It stood nearly twice Cam's height, its limbs bristling with blades and cannons. Its glowing eyes locked onto him, and a low, guttural growl rumbled from its chest. Cam raised the Gatling gun, but before he could fire, the Clerax moved with inhuman speed, closing the distance in an instant. It swiped at him with a bladed arm, and he barely managed to duck, the blade slicing through a nearby crate like butter. He rolled to the side, firing a burst from the Gatling gun. The bullets pinged off the Clerax's armor, barely scratching its surface. Cam cursed, retreating as it advanced. He needed a clan, and fast. His eyes darted around the hangar, searching for anything he could use. His gaze landed on a fuel line running along the wall, connected to a storage tank. Cam sprinted toward the line, the Clerax hot on his heels. He skidded to a stop, raising the plasma cutter and slicing through the line. Fuel sprayed everywhere, a pungent, flammable mist filling the air. The Clerax hesitated, its senses processing the sudden change in environment. Cam took the opportunity to pull a lighter from his pocket, flicking it open. "Let's see how you handle this," he said, tossing the flame into the fuel. The explosion was instantaneous, a fireball consuming the Clerax and shaking the hangar. Cam shielded his face from the heat, the shockwave knocking him off his feet. When the flames died down, the Clerax was still standing, but its armor was charred and cracked. Sparks flew from its damaged systems, and its movements were slower, more erratic. Cam didn't hesitate. He charged, the plasma cutter glowing brightly as he leapt onto the Clerax's back. It thrashed, but he held on, driving the blade into its exposed circuitry. With a final, guttural roar, the Clerax collapsed, its body convulsing before going still. Cam stumbled to his feet, battered and bruised but alive. He didn't waste another second, sprinting toward the starfighter. He climbed into the cockpit, powering it up as the hangar filled with the sound of approaching reinforcements. The engines roared to life, and Cam gripped the controls, guiding the starfighter out of the hangar and into the vast expanse of space. As he sped away from the Colosseum, his mind raced. He had survived the impossible, but his mission was far from over. The galaxy wasn't ready for what came next. The starfighter shot through the void, its sleek frame carving a path between the debris of the orbital battlefield. Cam gripped the controls tightly, sweat dripping down his temple. The exhilaration of escape had already begun to fade, replaced by the grim realization that his ordeal was far from over. The Colosseum's orbital station, now a distant glimmer behind him, erupted with a swarm of pursuit craft. Dozens of alien fighters spilled out like an angry hive, their weapons flaring to life. A warning alarm blared in the cockpit as the targeting systems locked onto him. "Here we go," Cam muttered, yanking the controls into a sharp dive. The first volley of plasma bolts screamed past him, lighting up the darkness with brilliant streaks of energy. Cam twisted the starfighter through a chaotic spiral, his reflexes pushed to their limits. The alien fighters were faster and more maneuverable, but they hadn't counted on one thing: Cam had nothing left to lose. He flicked a switch on the console, and the ship's rear-mounted cannons sprang to life. Twin barrels spat glowing rounds at his pursuers, forcing them to scatter. One fighter veered too late, its hull punctured by a precise burst. It spun out of control before erupting into a fiery explosion. Cam grinned grimly. One down. His celebration was cut short as two fighters flanked him, their energy cannons unleashing a withering barrage. Sparks flew inside the cockpit as his shields absorbed the hits, the power levels plummeting rapidly. He veered hard to the right, skimming the edge of a drifting asteroid. The alien ships followed, but one miscalculated, clipping the asteroid's jagged surface and disintegrating on impact. The second fighter stayed on his tail, its pilot more skilled, or perhaps more desperate. Cam pulled into a steep climb, weaving through the floating wreckage of a long-forgotten battle. The alien pilot mirrored his every move, refusing to let him shake free. "All right, you want to dance," Cam growled. He slammed the throttle forward, pushing the starfighter to its limits. The ship groaned in protest, but it surged ahead, creating just enough distance. Cam yanked back on the controls, flipping the fighter into a sudden reverse maneuver. The pursuing craft rocketed past him, its pilot caught off guard. Cam squeezed the trigger, and his forward cannons roared to life. The alien fighter exploded in a brilliant flash, fragments scattering into the void. But the reprieve was short-lived. The rest of the swarm was closing in, their formations tightening. Cam's ship shuddered as another plasma bolt grazed the hull. His shields were nearly gone, and the odds were stacking against him. Then, his sensors lit up with a new signal, a massive vessel approaching from the far side of the sector. Cam's heart sank as the ship came into view. It was a dreadnought, a leviathan of alien engineering bristling with weapons and flanked by an escort of cruisers. Its sheer size was enough to eclipse the field of stars behind it, and its presence radiated authority. The comm system crackled to life, a guttural voice filling the cockpit. "Human pilot, this is Commander Yeltar of the Triarch Dominion. Surrender now, and your death will be swift. Resist, and you will face annihilation." Cam's fingers tightened around the controls. He knew he couldn't outrun them, and he certainly couldn't outgun them. But surrender wasn't an option. He glanced at the console, his mind racing. The starfighters' systems were primitive compared to the dreadnoughts, but that also meant they were less predictable. He activated the comm system and responded with a defiant sneer. "Wyelta, heh? You talk a big game, but I've seen better commanders in an arcade." The alien's growl was audible even through the distortion. "You dare mock me, human? You will regret this insolence." Cam cut the transmission and redirected all remaining power to the engines. The starfighter lurched forward, aiming directly for the dreadnought. The escort cruisers broke formation, their turrets swiveling to track him. Plasma beams and missile salvos converged on his position, but Cam weaved through the onslaught with razor-sharp precision. His ship's frame groaned under the stress, but he pushed it harder, threading the needle between death and destruction. As he closed the distance to the dreadnought, its massive cannons began to fire. Each shot was a concentrated beam of energy, capable of obliterating entire fleets. Cam dodged the first blast, the shockwave rattling his teeth. The second grazed his wing, sending a shower of sparks through the cockpit. His targeting system blared as he locked onto a weak point, an exposed vent near the ship's main engine. It was a long shot, but it was his only chance. Cam armed the last of his ship's missiles, aligning the reticle with the vent. The dreadnought's cannons swiveled toward him, their deadly glow intensifying. Come on, Cam muttered, his finger hovering over the trigger. The cannons fired just as he launched the missiles. Cam yanked the controls, narrowly avoiding the blast, but the shockwave sent his ship spiraling. Through the spinning chaos, he watched as the missiles streaked toward their target. For a moment, it seemed like they wouldn't make it. Then, the vent erupted in a fiery explosion, the dreadnought shuddering as secondary detonations rippled through its structure. Cam fought to stabilize his ship, his vision blurring from the G-forces. The dreadnought listed to one side, its engines sputtering. Fires raged across its hull, and escape pods jettisoned in every direction. But his victory was short-lived. The escort cruisers, enraged by the destruction of their flagship, closed in with deadly intent. Cam's starfighter was barely holding together, and he was out of tricks. As the cruisers prepared to fire, his comm system crackled again. This time, it wasn't the voice of an alien commander, it was a human voice. "Unidentified starfighter, this is the Terran Defense Fleet. Hold your position. We've got your back." Cam's heart soared as a fleet of Terran warships emerged from hyperspace, their sleek designs bristling with advanced weaponry. The lead ship, a massive carrier, unleashed a swarm of drones that tore into the alien cruisers with surgical precision. The battle turned in an instant. The alien ships, caught off guard by the sudden reinforcements, faltered under the coordinated assault. Cam slumped back in his seat, exhaustion washing over him. He had survived against impossible odds, but he knew the fight wasn't over. As the Terran fleet mopped up the remnants of the alien forces, Cam stared out at the debris-strewn void. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, and this was just the beginning. He reached for the comm system, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "This is Cam. Whoever you are, I owe you one. But I'm not done yet. Let's finish this." The Terran Defense Fleet cut through the remnants of the alien forces with precision and ruthlessness. Cam's starfighter drifted among the carnage, its engines sputtering and shields barely functional. He watched as drones from the carrier swarmed over the alien cruisers, tearing them apart piece by piece. The Terran's arrival had turned the tide in an instant, but he knew this was no time to celebrate. A voice crackled through his comms again, steady and authoritative. "Cam, this is Admiral Drex of the Terran Defense Fleet. We've secured the area, but we've detected a massive energy buildup on the planet below. Whatever the Triarchs were protecting, it's still operational, and it's aimed at us." Cam grimaced, glancing at his flickering console. "Let me guess. Another doomsday weapon?" "Something worse," Drex replied. "Our scans indicate it's a planetary annihilator, a weapon designed to vaporize entire systems. The moment they lose control, they'll fire it out of spite." Cam let out a low whistle. "Guess they don't handle defeat well." Drex's tone hardened. "We need someone to disable it. Our warships can't break through the planetary defenses in time. Your ship's already inside the defensive perimeter. Can you finish this?" Cam glanced at his battered starfighter, then at the distant silhouette of the planet below. He didn't have much left, his ship was barely holding together, and he was running on fumes. But he also knew that if he didn't act, billions would die. "Yeah," he said finally, gripping the controls. "I can do it." "Good," Drek said. "You'll have our full support. Coordinates are being transmitted now. Good luck, pilot." The transmission ended, and Cam's nav system flickered to life, displaying a trajectory toward the surface. He adjusted his course and engaged the last remnants of his thrusters, diving toward the planet's atmosphere. The Terran fleet provided covering fire, clearing a path through the alien defenses. As he descended, the resistance grew fiercer. Automated turrets on the planet's surface locked onto his approach, unleashing a torrent of plasma fire. Cam zigzagged through the barrage, his starfighter groaning under the strain. Each near-miss sent sparks flying in the cockpit, but he refused to slow down. The planetary annihilator came into view, a massive structure embedded in the heart of an alien city. Its spires reached into the sky, pulsating with a sickly green energy. The ground around it was littered with anti-aircraft batteries and shield generators, each one designed to make any assault a suicide mission. Cam gritted his teeth. Figures they'd make this as hard as possible. His sensors blared a warning as a swarm of alien fighters launched from the city, their engines glowing like fireflies in the dark. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he wasn't alone. As the fighters closed in, the comm system crackled again. "This is Captain Rayner of the Terran carrier Tempest. We've dispatched a squadron to assist you. Stay alive, pilot." A formation of sleek Terran interceptors screamed past Cam's cockpit, engaging the alien fighters with relentless aggression. Explosions lit up the sky as the two sides clashed, buying Cam the time he needed to focus on his objective. He pushed his starfighter into a steep dive, skimming just above the rooftops of the alien city. The ground defenses opened fire, their plasma bolts tearing through the air around him. Cam weaved through the chaos, his reflexes pushed to their limits. The Annihilator loomed ahead, its central spire glowing brighter with each passing second. His targeting system locked onto the shield generators surrounding the structure, each one projecting an energy field that protected the weapon. Cam armed his remaining missiles, aligning his sights on the nearest generator. He fired, the missile streaking toward its target with deadly precision. The explosion rocked the city, and the shield around the Annihilator flickered but held. "Two more to go," Cam muttered, banking hard to avoid a turret's barrage. The second generator was hidden among a cluster of buildings, its position heavily fortified. Cam launched a series of strafing runs, his cannons shredding the defenses before unleashing another missile. The generator erupted in a fireball, sending a shockwave through the city. The final generator was directly beneath the Annihilator, surrounded by a web of turrets and alien infantry. Cam's ship was running on fumes, and his ammunition was almost depleted. He didn't have the firepower to take it out from the air. His hand hovered over the emergency eject lever. He knew what he had to do, but the thought of it sent a chill down his spine. There was no time to hesitate. He pulled the lever, and the cockpit canopy exploded outward. The ejection system launched him into the air, and his parachute deployed as the starfighter plummeted toward the generator. The impact triggered a chain reaction, and the explosion lit up the night like a second sun. Cam hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. He staggered to his feet, the shockwave from the explosion still ringing in his ears. The shield around the Annihilator collapsed, exposing its core. A squad of alien infantry advanced toward him, their weapons raised. Cam drew his sidearm, firing with practiced precision. Each shot found its mark, and the aliens fell one by one. The Annihilator's core began to hum, its glow intensifying. Cam sprinted toward it, dodging plasma fire and leaping over debris. He reached the base of the spire, where a control panel blinked with alien glyphs. "All right, let's see if I can figure this out," he muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. The alien language was incomprehensible, but the layout was similar to systems he'd encountered before. He worked quickly, bypassing security protocols and rerouting power. The core's hum grew louder, its glow reaching a blinding intensity. Cam slammed his fist onto a final button, and the Annihilator's energy dissipated in a brilliant burst. The spire shuddered, and a series of explosions rippled through its structure. He turned and ran, diving for cover as the Annihilator collapsed in on itself. The city shook as the weapon's destruction triggered a chain reaction. Cam scrambled to his feet, coughing through the dust and debris. The Terran fleet's drones swooped in, clearing the remaining alien forces. A shuttle descended from the sky, its hatch opening to reveal a squad of Terran Marines. One of them extended a hand. "Cam, let's get you out of here." He grasped the hand, hauling himself aboard. As the shuttle ascended, he looked back at the ruins of the city, the Annihilator reduced to rubble. The comm system crackled to life. Admiral Drex's voice was steady but filled with relief. "You did it, Cam. The galaxy owes you one." Cam leaned back in his seat, exhaustion washing over him. Just another day in the life of a guy who doesn't know when to quit. The Marines chuckled, and the shuttle carried him toward the safety of the Terran fleet. The battle was over, but Cam knew the war was far from won. Still, for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to hope.